As well as variables like we have shown already, sometimes you want a whole group of variables of the same type. For example, on the screen at the moment you can see I have 5 enemies, and I've had to create 5 separate objects to store those in, 5 separate variable boxes. Enemy 1, enemy 2, enemy 3, enemy 4, enemy 5. There is a much better way. We call these arrays. Now to create an array, I'm going to start with an integer array here. We have our standard keywords such as int, because we're going to create an integer, but then we put a pair of square brackets around, and then we tell the computer how many boxes we want to create. An array is like a series of lockers or a filing cabinet. Each item, each box is still accessible, but we want multiple boxes in one list. So for example, these lockers here mean that I have 4 integer variables, and if I want to access the first locker I use locker 0, and I can put the value of 10 into that locker. In the second box I can put the value 12, and so on. Notice that the numbering starts at 0, not at 1. That means that lockers 0, 1, 2 and 3 exist in this structure. If I try and type in lockers square brackets 4, there will be an error message that will come up in my program, and the program will crash because there is no locker of number 4. That just shows how many that need to be created. I can do the same thing for my enemies. I just put a single square bracket, and I can have my 5 enemies created straight away. Say I wanted to put in the values in my locker before I even start the code program going. I can use curly brackets, and then as long as I have the same number of items here as I've got here, I can create that item. If I want every item to be the same, I can't just type that once. I would need to create it for how many enemies I have got. And that will now let us go through. It's called an initializer, and it's a great way of setting up your array before you even start. Now that's okay if you only want a list of items, but say you're creating a version of Excel. In Excel I've got both an X and a Y, I've got columns and rows. Maybe I can do the same thing here. All I have to do is put a comma in between my square brackets, and then tell the computer how many rows I want and how many columns. X, Y coordinates. So I was storing information in 3D space. I can't call it 3D objects because you cannot start the name of a variable with a number. I use 2 commas for 3D. So now I have 3 dimensions. What if I want to track those objects over time, so I can track their 3D location through time? I can have a 4-dimensional array, so I want to do it over 60 seconds. There's no limit to the size of the array that you want to have, or you can have in programming. Human beings can just about manage thinking about 4th dimensions. 5th dimensions is a bit more tricky, but you can classify it maybe as saying, well, I'm following all these objects through time, and I'm following a different set of objects through time. That's your 5th dimension. Arrays are really useful to be able to use to keep things together in the same way as we're keeping things together with structures, enumerated types and classes.